Is now 2 o'clock on the eastern coast, and today I'm really super excited to welcome all of the folks who are joining us via this webinar, and just want to remind everybody this is being recorded. Today is the last webinar. We've had one every day this week at 2 o'clock, and I'm super excited to be welcoming our friends from a variety of different federal agencies to be talking about the array of programs that they have. So without further ado, let's jump into the slides, Amber, and we'll get the ball rolling. Is the slide presentation actually playing? Because I only see the main one.
Let me. Yep. Is it working now?
Okay, there we go. Yeah.
Okay,
so just
perfect.
a brief little background from Maui to Maine. National Entrepreneurship Week is really a grassroots effort with folks from across the United States, and the goal really is to uplift and raise the voices of a diverse array of communities that are focusing on entrepreneurship in communities all across the United States. So we thank everybody for joining us today. Next slide, please. National Entrepreneurship Week was founded in 2006 by the National Consortium for Entrepreneurship Education, also known as EntreEd, and the Kauffman Foundation. And so it's exciting the last couple of years, next slide please, to be able to go ahead. Amber and I have been working with a team of volunteers to really continue to elevate National Entrepreneurship Week and help focus on those communities. So before we jump into a bunch of other stuff, I would like to go ahead and formally thank Amber for all of the graphics and the images and all the hard work in corralling all of the speakers this week. You and Megan have done an amazing job. And the folks at EntreEd and the rest of the organizations that we've been collaborating. It's been a phenomenal week. Thank you, Amber, for all your help on that. If you aren't already following National Entrepreneurship Week on Twitter, please take a moment to go on Twitter and follow us on Twitter with the handle NatlEshipWeek, National Entrepreneurship Week, and also use the handle, the pound sign National eShip Week in order to go ahead and keep tweeting throughout the rest of this week and today. Amber, I'm going to hand this over to you to kind of walk us through some of the logistics.
Sure. So you've noticed when you enter, you are muted upon entry. That's on purpose to eliminate any background noise. We will offer some Q&A time at the end if we have time. We have an impressive lineup of speakers, so we don't want to promise any live Q&A, but we'll ask you to please put questions in via the chat function. If we have time, we'll answer those live, but if not, we will direct those questions to the individuals that they're addressed to so that you can follow up with them via email. The webinar is being recorded and will be available for view within 1 week after its live recording, so it should be available next Friday. And we'd ask if you please stay till the end of the webinar. We have some exciting plans coming up for National Entrepreneurship Week 2020, and we'd love to share them with you and get you involved. So with that, we're ready to kick off the federal support for entrepreneurship. I do want to share this slide really briefly. It links to the Twitter handles for each of the agencies that are going to be speaking today. We have 8 total. And so we're going to go very quickly through the program, but we're really excited to introduce our first speaker. Joe, do you want to go ahead and introduce?
Sure. So we're welcoming Dan Correa, who is the Senior Advisor at the Center for American Entrepreneurship. And with that, Dan, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Amber and Joe, for putting this together. I'm excited to be with you all. So what I'd like to do over the ensuing several minutes is to do 4 things. First, I'm going to share a little bit about who the Center for American Entrepreneurship is and why we exist. Second, I'd like to talk about why entrepreneurship matters, not just to us that are already in the community, but why it's more broadly important to society at large and why policymakers should care about it. Third, I'd like to talk a little bit about what we do, how we give entrepreneurs a voice in government to advocate for their interests. And then finally, and I think most importantly for the purposes of this conversation, I'd like to spend a little time talking about why you should care about all of the fantastic things that the federal government already does and how to think about approaching those resources. So I'll kick off by talking just briefly about who we are at the Center for American Entrepreneurship. So we are a new organization that's founded within the last 18 months. And the premise behind why we decided to form this nonprofit is the following. It's that nobody out there is advocating to policymakers on behalf of the entrepreneur who has not yet started a company. Our goal is to pursue the development of a comprehensive policy agenda intended to enhance the circumstances for new businesses to form, survive, grow, and prosper. And so we identified this as a significant gap, both at the federal level as well as at the state and local levels, where we said there's a need for people to do a bunch of policy development, to come up with valuable policy proposals that can support entrepreneurs. And so I encourage you to check out our entire agenda at startupsusa.org. So that's who we are. Now, let me just say a little bit more about why entrepreneurship matters and why we thought this was important enough to start a nonprofit devoted to this. Now, I understand that I'm preaching to the converted to an extent, but I think it's worth pausing over some of the statistics that convey the urgency of why we're doing what we're doing. So there are really two key economic reasons for why, as a society, we should care about startups. And the first is jobs. So recent research has shown that startups as a cohort account for virtually all net new job creation. They are truly the engine of job growth across the country. That's one. Two, productivity growth. So we know from research dating back to the 1950s that the lion's share of economic growth can't be attributed to increases in labor or capital. It's actually innovation, gains in productivity that come from technological change and innovation that are more often than not driven by new firms. So that's great news. Obviously, entrepreneurs and startups are important given those two facts. But isn't it the case then that we live in a golden age of entrepreneurship? In the popular imagination, this might seem to be true, but it turns out that we don't. And you'll see from slide 2, which is up on the screen right now, that after remaining remarkably consistent for decades, we've experienced a dramatic decline in the number of new businesses formed. So since 2009, the number of new businesses launched has dropped to about 400,000. And what that means is that we've currently got a deficit of about 100,000 missing new firms each year. And recent data suggests that yes, in 2015 and 2016, there's been an uptick, a slight recovery, but the baseline of where we are is fairly low. And so that, when compounded with what's on the next slide, which shows that what economists Robert Light and Ian Hathaway have shown, which is that entrepreneurship rates have actually fallen near a 40-year low, and that this decline is occurring across all 50 states, in all but a handful of the 360 metro areas that they examined, and across a broad range of industry sectors, including high tech. And the implications for this are significant, as you can see on the following slide, that remember when I mentioned the importance of the startups to productivity growth? Well, it turns out that productivity growth is also low, and that this can be connected to the decline of startups. So this is reflected in economic growth. So those are the numbers, and that's the core challenge, and that's why we're dedicated to improving the policy circumstances for entrepreneurs, because more entrepreneurship means more economic and productivity growth. So I'd like to next turn to what we do and how we prosecute this agenda. And so that's on the slide, major themes we hear everywhere. So one of the ways that we give entrepreneurs a voice in government is that we conduct roundtables with entrepreneurs around the country on an ongoing basis. And what we do is we ask them, what are the key barriers that you're facing? And so I wanted to share with you just a couple of the kinds of characteristic things that we hear. Things like access to capital is more difficult than ever. The tax code's overly complex and it's hard as a small business to navigate it. Regulation at the state, local, and federal level is a key barrier in my industry. Our immigration policies make no sense. These are the kinds of barriers that people bring to us. Now, you'll notice that these are not policy prescriptions. We don't go to entrepreneurs saying, tell us what you think a policy proposal should look like to fix the tax code. That's okay. That's actually our job. Our work is converting these challenges into actionable ideas, whether these are legislative proposals that can improve the way the federal government regulates or taxes or adds more funding for programs. But it's also working with agencies like the folks that we have on the call today, helping them to refine their offerings so that it meets the needs of the entrepreneurship community. So one invitation I'd like to offer to the folks on the call is to help get involved in advocacy with us. We'd love to know your priority issues, even if you don't have a policy solution in mind. And also, we'd love to work with you so you can help us be the champions who are living entrepreneurship or working closely with entrepreneurs who are, and can help effectively guide the policy development process. That's one. And then two, we'd love to work with you to work with federal agencies to more effectively incorporate your perspectives and ensure that their offerings are tailored to your needs. And so we can do this through roundtables, we can do this through direct outreach, but we'd love to start that conversation. And so that brings me to my final point that I'd like to make, which is on this slide, which is, I really think what we're talking about for the balance of our time together throughout this webinar. And I'd say one of the things that we hear from entrepreneurs across the country on a repeated basis is, I don't know how the federal government's relevant, and I don't know what's available or on offer that actually can help my business. So I wanted to close by talking a little bit about why you should care, because one of the things that I've realized over the years is that truly the most underappreciated asset for the entrepreneurial community is what the federal government is already doing. It's difficult to exaggerate the scope and the relevance of these resources. No kidding. And to underscore that, I would make an additional point, which is that I think we have this perception that the federal government is notoriously difficult to work with. And what I want to share with the folks on the call is that I think we are in the midst of a customer revolution in government. So that the federal government is revolutionizing its citizen-facing offerings. They're getting better and better, but they need your help. And so if you don't see yourself in any available opportunities, if you look around and you say, you know what, none of these agencies have anything that really speaks to me, I think I would encourage you to speak up, not just to me, but to them, because I guarantee that there are funding opportunities out there for you. And there's also probably a friendly face wishing you would apply for their funding, and eager to improve the process so it's easier for you to do so. So let me just give you a couple examples of the kinds of things I'm excited about that are out there that you may not know about. So first of all, on the funding side, many of us have heard of the Small Business Innovation Research Program. You may not know that it's not one monolithic program. This is funding that over a dozen federal agencies provide to small businesses and entrepreneurs, high growth entrepreneurs, who are working on specific technology and science projects, R&D, doing work. There is over $2.5 billion of resources available, including from some of the folks we're going to hear from on the call. As I mentioned, this is not one monolithic program. It's over a dozen different programs, and agencies are trying new things all the time. Let me give you an example. The U.S. Air Force is experimenting, having heard from applicants that it's actually often time-consuming and slow to apply for funding from their program. They're experimenting with a pitch day that's coming up in the first half of this year, where they are making money available in small increments to the winners of a pitch competition, and they are signing contracts on the same day and giving money out on a credit card to businesses that are so you can do the entire deal in the same day. Pretty compelling opportunity. So that's one. Another is that may not be on people's radar is that there is an office at the Small Business Administration. It's called the Office of Advocacy, that is your voice in government. And if you share your story, if enough of us share our stories, they will provide input into the regulatory process that seems totally opaque. Whenever new rules and regulations are being proposed, let's just say on immigration, where we want more immigrant talent because it's critical to job growth, critical to the businesses that we're building. They will actually be our representative and try to change the trajectory of impending regulations. So powerful office that can do a lot on our behalf. We just need to figure out how to use it. So I'll stop there. What you see on the screen is both our agenda and some of our activities. I include those just so if people want to take a look and review them rather than speaking to them, I thought it'd be useful so folks have the slide. But we encourage you to check us out online and to partner with us, because I think this is a pathway to partnering with the federal government, which, as I said, is the most important unheralded asset available to entrepreneurs and those who support them. So I'll hand it back to Joe. Thank you.
Dan, thank you so much for those insights. It was really valuable, and it's also been great getting to know you and John better and the great work that you guys are doing. That really segues well to our next presentation by Emily Miller, who is a policy advisor on strategic initiatives over at the Department of Commerce. Specifically, she is at the Office of Innovation and Entrepreneurship, and Emily is one of the newest members. So Emily, welcome, and we look forward to hearing more about the role and the work that the Office of Innovation and Entrepreneurship does. Emily?
Thank you so much, Joe and Amber. Thanks for having us here, and thank you everybody for joining us and spending some of your precious Friday afternoon. As they said, so I'm a policy advisor here in the Office of Innovation and Entrepreneurship, but I am also a former entrepreneur myself. So, this week and what it stands for is very near and dear to my heart. And I'm very excited today to show you a few of the initiatives we have going on here that can help entrepreneurs directly. Next slide. So our goal here, our main program at the Office of Innovation and Entrepreneurship is the Regional Innovation Strategies Program, what we call RIS. And our entire goal here is to foster innovation, accelerate technology commercialization, and promote productivity and economic growth. Now, I know that's kind of a mouthful, but really what it boils down to is that we have two programs, two grant competitions that we host annually every year. And both of these grant competitions are open right now. So applications opened on February 1st and they close on April 4th. So we've got a couple months left in that application period. So really, the first one is our I6 Challenge. The focus of the I6 Challenge is to promote high growth, high tech entrepreneurship. So that could be products, services, or a mix thereof that are commercialized and brought to market. The whole point there being that, hey, when entrepreneurs create companies, these companies create jobs. And jobs bring dynamism to our regional markets. So under this program, we give up to $750,000 in funding. If you do get selected, it's a very competitive selection process, and I'm happy to connect with folks offline if you're interested in learning the specifics of it. One thing to note is that we do require a one-to-one match when you apply for our program. So, as federal funders, we know that partners are important, and we can't know the nuances of your communities, so we do look for other partners and supporters who have skin in the game. And one thing to note is that our overall funding went up this year because we're seeing such great results. So the I6 Challenge will have roughly $18 million dedicated to it for 2019, which is really fantastic. Our next program is Seed Fund Support Grant Competition. And the entire purpose behind this is to increase access to seed capital. So if you are an early stage entrepreneur and you are really trying to get your company started, we are trying to support that ecosystem. There are serious gaps in the capital market. We are trying to catalyze more opportunities so that early stage companies can really get access to that capital. We've supported many different types of organizations through the Seed Fund Support, everything from angel associations to clean tech funds to ag tech funds, all over the United States, urban, rural, you name it. So it's kind of the beauty of the grant competition. We award up to $300,000 in funds for this grant. And one thing to note is that this money is not debt, so it is meant to actually support operations to ensure that risk capital is deployed. And next slide. So to give you a sense of our portfolio to date, we've already made 5 investments. So we've got 5 cohorts behind us. We've had some pretty incredible results coming out of it. We've covered almost the entire United States, including 2 territories. Our work has spanned across various industries, just about every kind. and every type of organization that's eligible. So rural, urban, nonprofits, universities, research parks, community colleges. So, you know, really phenomenal results from this program. And I'd say, I mean, look at the results right there, you know, over 8,000 jobs created, and more importantly, over $1 billion in follow-on capital. So if you'd like to see more of our project portfolio, please go to our website. It's the OIE website on this slide right here. You can view our project profiles. We have a quick summary of each of the types of projects that we funded in the past, and this will give you a better sense of our portfolio as a whole. And again, we funded projects that range from angel capital networks in New Mexico to accelerators in Puerto Rico, harnessing innovation after natural disasters. So it really does span the gamut. All right, next slide. So we are in an open competition period right now. So if you are interested in applying, please go to our website to learn more. You can apply on grants online. The application period is open until April 4th. The important thing to note here is that we do not have any extensions available. So if you are interested in getting your application in, it does need to be submitted no later than April 4th by 11:59 p.m. Eastern time. And like I mentioned before, we've got more than $23 million available this year for these grant competitions. So please do check it out. Next slide. And then just a little bit about, you know, our work and really what we do here at the Economic Development Administration. You know, to build a healthy ecosystem, much like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you know, community has a hierarchy of needs. And at the bottom of that is basic infrastructure. So EDA works at every level of this ecosystem. So we work on things like transportation and utilities, broadband and wireless to really build up that basic and technology infrastructure. And where our office works, innovation entrepreneurship is really near that top part. So business support and innovation engine. So we do a lot of work, obviously supporting the incubators, the accelerators, that access to early capital, and working with the universities and labs to really get those innovation engines humming in communities. Next slide. And lastly, you know, just really want to hit this point home that we are not a zero-sum competitive organization. What we really strive to do is to be positive sum, to be collaborative. You know, we really pride ourselves on coming in and working with community partners. You know, we want as many, you know, valuable partners with us as possible. You know, that ranges from nonprofits to universities to private corporations, you know, really all working together to make a difference. Next slide. And then here's just a quick summary slide for your reference, you know, just a recap of everything I've gone over. I'd say the biggest thing is if you are interested in learning more about our programs, whether you want to apply this year or for the 2020 round, you know, please do go on our website, learn more. And I'm sure I'll be able to get my contact information out there if any folks have questions. Please get in touch with me. Thank you so much.
Great. Well, thank you so much. That was very informative. And for anybody considering, you know, going after funding or grants, U.S. Office of Innovation and EDA have a lot of opportunities to really help with businesses and the organizations that help serve them. Speaking about organizations that serve entrepreneurs and the great work that's being done, I'm happy to go ahead and introduce our next speaker, who's coming to us from the United States Small Business SBA. So please welcome and join me in welcoming Star Willebram, the Senior Advisor at the SBA for the Office of Intergovernmental Affairs. Star?
Hi, thank you so much for reminding me. Yes, my name is Star Wilbraham. I work with our Office of Intergovernmental Affairs as well as our Office of Innovation and Technology, which our work I imagine you're going to hear about a couple times today. I want to thank you all for inviting me to join you all as well and give you congratulations on another great Entrepreneurship Week. I'd like to also thank you, the audience, for participating in today's webinar. Whether you are an aspiring entrepreneur, established business owner, part of an entrepreneur support team, or somewhere in between, my hope today is to provide you with at least one more resource to put in your back pocket for your entrepreneurial journey. So if we can go to the next slide, while the Small Business Administration, the SBA, is one of the smaller federal agencies, the impact of our work can be felt across the country and really even the world. We serve the entrepreneurs that run the millions of small businesses in the U.S. that fuel the economy and generate 2/3 of net new jobs. So that's many of you on the phone today. Our aim at SBA is to help you and your business start, grow, expand, and recover. We'll talk a little bit more about what that is in the next few minutes. And so whether you just have an idea for a business or are ready to take your business global, SBA probably has a resource for you. So over the next few minutes, allow me to point you in the direction of some of those great resources, which you can then be able to pick and choose from for you and your business needs. And then hopefully then you can create your plan on how to take your business to the next level. So next slide, please. So of course, to start any business, many of you know you need to develop a plan. And many entrepreneurs will tell you that you're going to be going back to this plan more than once. So to assist you, SBA has a variety of in-person and online resources to help you. At our core are our district offices. In fact, there are 68 offices across the country, and they are staffed with folks who are there to help guide you through SBA programs and connect you actually to other resource partners. Some of those partners I'll go over here just really briefly today. The first is our SCORE offices. They help provide mentorship and advice from volunteer real-world business executives. And this can be done impersonally or virtually. We also have, many of you might know, our small business development centers, and they provide free business consulting and low-cost training. And then we also have women business centers and veteran business opportunity centers, and they can provide business advice to level the playing field against many of the unique challenges or obstacles some of those communities might come against. So then we have the next step of accessing capital. Where's the money, as some might say? SBA works with approved lenders to offer microloans and SBA-backed loans, often referred to as a guarantee. So these loans provide competitive terms, lower down payments, flexible overhead requirements, and counseling and education. A great tool, and this is relatively new, to find an approved lender is Lender Match. You can find that at sba.gov/lendermatch. If you're looking for an equity and debt investment, you may look to a privately owned and managed fund that is licensed and regulated by SBA, known as Small Business Investment Company, or an SBIC. Also, if you are a technology-focused small business looking to fund research and development or prototyping operations, this was mentioned in the first presentation, you may qualify for the Small Business Innovation Research and Small Business Tech Transfer programs, known as SBIR and STTR. Talk more about that in a moment. And then if you need to be bonded to bid on a contract, as many folks might need, the SBA Surety Bond Program guarantees surety bonds from select providers so more small businesses can qualify for and win work. So then really next step is when your business is ready to expand. And perhaps you want to connect with the world's largest customer, the federal government, because that might be the right option for you. The federal government provides all kinds of products and services and is required by law to provide contract opportunities to small businesses. Connecting with the world's largest customer can be profitable, yes, but it can be also extremely complex. So several federal contracting certifications are available to help many business owners get started and thrive. These certifications include the 8A Business Development Program that helps provide a level playing field for small businesses, the Hub Zone Program, the Women-Owned Small Business Program, as well as the Service Disabled Veteran-Owned Program. You may also consider participating as a mentor or as a protege in the All Small Mentor Protege Program. You can gain valuable business development insight from mentors who are actually experienced government contractors. To learn more about all of that and determine your eligibility for these programs, You can get specialized help from what we call Procurement Technical Assistance Centers, PTACs, as well as, again, another relatively new resource, certified.sba.gov. So then if you could go to the next slide. I have mentioned a lot of resources right there. So in the short amount of time I have, I wanted to highlight 3 SBA resources that I'm actually wondering if, did you know? And if I'd be really curious if folks wanted to put into the chat in the Q&A section, type in if you actually knew or don't know about these resources I'm about to highlight. The first one is export and trade assistance. Many small businesses focus on consumers in the United States as their sole customers. But it turns out nearly 90% of consumers live outside of the U.S., and that represents 2/3 of the world's purchasing power in foreign countries. So that's pretty huge. And if you're thinking as a business, you want to connect with those consumers, SBA actually provides access to capital to expand your market via loan guarantees. Again, back to those guarantees through SBA-approved lenders, and provides financial awards to state and territory governments to help small businesses export their products. The next resource you may not know about is SBA Disaster Assistance. One of SBA's largest programs can help you and your business recover after a declared disaster. In fact, SBA Disaster Assistance helps small and large businesses, in addition to homeowners, renters, and nonprofits. And we provide low interest, long-term direct loans from SBA. That's one of the few direct loan programs from SBA. So immediately after a disaster, SBA comes in and they work to make sure you are safe and secure. SBA then works with you on next steps, and we work to help you to potentially recover real estate, personal property, machinery and equipment, inventory, as well as even economic injury. The next and final resource I wanted to highlight, we had mentioned before, the Small Business Innovation Research and Small Business Technology Transfer Program. Those are for those technology-focused small businesses looking to fund R&D and prototyping operations. So you may qualify for one of the federal grants or contracts from federal agencies that fund this through their extramural R&D budgets. These programs hopefully encourage domestic small businesses to engage in federal research and R&D that has the potential for commercialization. So then we go to the last slide. And I just wanted to give you the bottom line here. If you want any more information on any of these topics we talked about today, you can find all of those resources at sba.gov. You can also go to a local assistance by going to sba.gov/local assistance. And there you can be connected to over 1,400 partner offices that are available nationwide. So on that note, thank you for participating today. And I do wish you all the best on wherever you are in your entrepreneurial journey. Thanks so much.
Star, thank you so much for that in-depth review of the various programs. It's it's really, truly very helpful. And we're so appreciative of all of that detail. I want to go ahead and switch gears a little bit from our business and commerce agencies to some of the maybe a little bit more non-traditional agencies that maybe a lot of entrepreneurs and organizations that help entrepreneurs maybe haven't thought about in the past, but have programs and activities that are helping entrepreneurs. And with that, I'd like to go ahead and hand it over to our next speaker, Dr. Todd Haim, who is the Chief of the Office of Small Business Research at the National Institute on Aging over at NIH. So we want to go ahead and welcome Dr. Haim to our chat today.
Great, thank you to both you, Joe, and to Amber for including the NIH in this webinar. You know, this is a really exciting time for entrepreneurship at the NIH. The NIH has launched several relevant initiatives and resources for entrepreneurs that I'd like to highlight in the 7 minutes we have. You know, first and foremost is the funding, and you know, Star just presented the SBR and STTR program to you at a high level. You know, at the NIH, That represents over $1.1 billion now on an annual basis, specific to small businesses. NIH. Now, the NIH is then structured into 27 institutes and centers. Most of these are organized around a set of diseases, and each managed funding programs for entrepreneurs. So I recently came from the National Cancer Institute, where I manage some of the small business efforts there, and I now lead the small business efforts at the National Institute on Aging. There are several funding mechanisms available to entrepreneurs, such as SBIR, STTR, R21s for translational research, and contract resources, such as the therapeutics for rare and neglected diseases, for maybe entrepreneurs that are developing such therapeutics, or maybe the market potential isn't as high due to the small patient population, but the impact health-wise can be enormous. In terms of SBIR, it is important to note that the higher cost of biomedical research are recognized, and that NIH, SBIR, and STTR awards can often be as much as 3 times higher than congressional guidelines for certain topic areas. So I represent, as I said, the National Institute on Aging and lead their small business programs. The NIA, SBIR, and STTR funding has more than tripled in the past 4 years, which has allowed us to support much larger numbers of entrepreneurs. And our mission includes both a focus on Alzheimer's disease and related dementias, as well as other aspects of aging, such as digital health, support tools, fall detection, and caregiving needs, including social research type technologies that can aid in those efforts. So it's not just hardcore drugs or devices, but some people don't realize. And we are actively interested in new applications from promising entrepreneurs. So please feel free to contact me. I'll get to that a bit in a second. You know, one of the things entrepreneurs often don't realize about NIH is how accessible our staff are. We are interested in connecting with potential grant applicants ahead of an application and can provide guidance on both the fit and the structure of proposed projects. The NIH SBIR website, sbir.nih.gov, is a great place to start, and it includes contact information for the small business staff at each of the 27 institutes and centers. But entrepreneurship at NIH means a lot more than just funding. And I wanted to make sure that's clear today. So we recognize that the funding we provide is almost never enough to enable commercialization. And thus we launched several efforts to help accelerate and facilitate advancing technologies towards commercialization. The newest effort is, and exciting, is the creation of a new office at the NIH, the Office of Biomedical Entrepreneurship and Innovation. This was just announced in the past month or two, and the office will be more fully launched by the end of 2019. The office being, again, the Office of Biomedical Entrepreneurship and Innovation is being set up to meet the needs of entrepreneurs and to take NIH's efforts to support entrepreneurs and facilitate commercialization of technologies that will improve human health to the next level. And it'll both bring together and enhance several current initiatives. And I'll just go over a few of those. One is the Reach Hubs, that similar to the I6 hubs that were mentioned earlier. They provide seed funding to entrepreneurs through hubs that are funded in different regions across the country. And to, recognizing Dan's point earlier, these funding resources are pre-company formation, because we do recognize that need. We also have efforts to facilitate partnerships between the startups that we fund through the SBIR and STTR programs and potential investors, as well as key opinion leaders. 2 examples are the Bio-Innovation Zone, in which this year at the Bio International Convention in June, the NIH will be showcasing 80 of its SBIR and STTR awardees. Each awardee will have a kiosk. They'll get to present to the investors and strategic partners at Bio, request meetings, etc. And then we also have a similar relationship at smaller scale with the Angel Capital Association. So we're actively engaged in these efforts, understanding that the startups that we fund often need help in facilitating such partnerships. We also have several training and entrepreneurial immersion programs for funded startups, such as the iCall program at NIH, which is a short customer discovery-oriented programs and an adaptation of the NSF ICOR program. But at NIH, it's 4 Phase 1 SBIR awardees. C3I, which is a longer, it's about half a year program created by the Coulter Foundation, which provides both entrepreneurial immersion, customer discovery, as well as educational activities over the course of 6 months and specific for medical devices. We have the niche assessment program for Phase 1 awardees that through a contractor to the NIH provides each company with a marketing assessment and research report that's very helpful in their Phase 2 SBR application. And the CAP, the Commercialization Assistance Program, which provides some mentorship and guidance for companies as they move towards commercialization. Another thing that will be a part of this office is something that was launched in the past year or two at NIH, which is the Entrepreneurs in Residence program. And that's where we bring in entrepreneurs that really bring with them the Rolodex and their experience in actually creating and leading companies in the biomedical research space. And these entrepreneurs in residence, we just brought in our second at the NIH, and I think a third is on the way. They'll serve as a key resource for funded startups and can assist with things like pitch refinement and navigation of the landscape. And then the last thing is that we at the NIH launched several challenges and prizes. So at NIA, we have one around caregiver navigation and about $400,000 in prize money available for that. So I'm confident that there will be more to come as the office gets launched. Remember, our email and phone lines are open. Please connect with us to see if we can help advance the development of any technology that could improve human health. Thank you again.
Dr. Haim, thank you so much. You, in addition to the work that you're doing around entrepreneurship, you also maintain a very impressive technical medical background. So we're really appreciative of all the efforts that you do to support entrepreneurship in the medical field. It's certainly an emerging opportunity, significant if there's one field that's probably ripe for significant opportunity as things continue. Certainly the medical arena is there's a lot of opportunity. So thank you for being with us today. With that, I'd like to go ahead and transition over to the U.S. Department of Agriculture and Mojdeh Bahar. Mojdeh has a lot of fantastic experience working in a variety of different capacities with regards to technology transfer. So with that, Mojdeh, I'm going to pass it on over to you. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Joe, and thank you for the kind introduction. Thank you for including USDA in the federal agency panel this afternoon. And as Joe mentioned and other colleagues have reiterated, federal agencies play a rather unique role in our innovation economy. And while we think about federal labs in terms of funding of innovation, we seldom capture all the different roles that we may play in the innovation ecosystem. And I hope that by the end of my 6 minutes, you will see some ways in which you can engage with us as a federal laboratory that don't necessarily have a lot to do with funding. So next slide, please. So I think it's really important for each of us, whether we are a federal agency or a different player in the innovation economy, to know which piece of the puzzle we hold. And here on this slide, one of the things that I have shown in red is the roles that USDA or frankly any other federal agency may play. So we are, for one, a public research institution, and in that, as you can imagine, there are private entities that are also research institutions. Other players can be institutions of higher education, entrepreneurs like yourselves, businesses, whether they are big or small, economic development entities, regardless of their legal form, venture capital, angel investors, and government grants, where the funding of most of these businesses come from, nonprofits and foundations, of which we see more and more these days in the context of innovation and funding of projects and consortia. As federal agencies, we can also be ecosystem builders. We can be connectors. We can do that through either, as I mentioned, consortia or technology transfer, business development, or strategic alliances with whether it's industry partners or academic partners. Also, being active in the manufacture, some folks that are active in the manufacture sector of our economy, and technical support services. These are all the possible players in the innovation economy and in the innovation ecosystem. And as the federal agency, we are part of the research of it. We are part of the research and development part. We are part of the funding. We are also the connectors. So we play three rather major roles that can help the communities in which we are located. With that, I also wanted to let you know a little bit about where I work and how this applies to our agency. Next slide, please. So Agricultural Research Service is the USDA's chief scientific in-house research agency. That's where all the intramural research gets done, a large portion of the intramural research, in addition to animal plant health inspection services and forest service. We have about 690 research projects that span animal production and protection, so animal vaccines, meat production, crop production and protection, for example, introduction of new cultivars and plants, as well as pesticides, natural resources and sustainable ag systems. Precision ag, for example, is one of the big items that you may have heard about. And last but not least, nutrition, food safety, and quality. So as you can see, it's a big array of science. The breadth of what the agency does in terms of research cuts through every single scientific discipline. And we have 690 research projects on which about 2,000 scientists and postdocs work. We have about 6,000 support employees, and we are present in 90 plus locations in US and I think 3 outside the US. And our annual budget is between $1.1 and $1.2 billion a year. Next slide, please. Our mission is to deliver scientific solutions to national and global agricultural challenges, but we can't do that alone. It is really important for us to have partners. It is important for us to be able to, number one, identify what those problems are, and second, be able to find the scientific solutions alongside of you, whether you're an entrepreneur, a business, or an academic partner. Next slide, please. So we spoke about the different players in the ecosystem, and different players can engage with a federal agency like ours very differently. So if you're a small business or an entrepreneur, one of the things that all of the colleagues so far have mentioned is the small business innovation research grants that are administered by the agencies, but that they are overseen by the SBA, and 11 federal agencies participate in them. What we have is a little bit of a different flavor. As I mentioned, we are a research agency, not a granting agency, but we have a program with our granting agency, and this program is called SBIR Tech Transfer. And the reason I bring it up is that I think it's germane to a lot of you that might be interested in applying for a small business innovation research grant from USDA's National Institute of Food and Agriculture. If you come to ARS and you take one of our technologies, whether as a collaborator or a licensee, basically you have a much higher chance of getting an SBIR. The average SBIR by NIFA, the phase 1, is 16.6%, whereas in the past 3 or 4 years, we have had a success rate of 73%. And you can imagine why that would be, because it's all, the project has already been vetted once. So if you're an entrepreneur, that's one of the probably best ways to engage with us, with both agencies at USDA, NIFA, our granting agency, and ARS, the research agency. You can also collaborate with us. So if you have a problem that you have identified, we can probably find most likely a world expert in ag that works on that problem alongside of you. Or if we have a fully developed technology that you might be interested in commercialization, you can definitely come and license it from us. And we also have pilot plants with, which are unique facilities in 4 locations in the US, and you can come and use them as you collaborate with our scientists. If you're a large or medium-sized enterprise, also these collaborations are of use to you, and the pilot plants remain unique. And you can also license the ARS technologies. You might not be able to participate in the SBIR because of the fact that you might not be a small business, but everything else on the left-hand side is applicable to you as well. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you very much. With that, I hope that you will contact us, that you'll visit our website, and I'm ready to, actually, no, we'll answer questions at the end. Thanks so much.
Great. Thank you so much, Mojde. You know, I personally have had a lot of experience working with the USDA in Appalachia and a lot of the work that we've been doing out with farmers and growers. And so we're really, really appreciative of all the work. And it's really amazing. I think a lot of people don't necessarily know of all of the types of research and work that is being done over at the USDA and how they can make that information and that research and those opportunities available to themselves in order to start and grow a business. Switching gears now, kind of bringing us back to our Monday conversation, I want to go ahead and introduce Dr. Casey Sachs, who is the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Community Colleges over at the U.S. Department of Education. Casey, thanks so much for joining us today.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure. Thanks, everyone. This is not part of my presentation, but I do want to plug something that the State Department is putting on. It's a Global Entrepreneurship Summit, and I thought someone else surely would talk about it by now, but since they didn't, Joe, will you type the details in the chat for everybody? There's an online application, and if you are an entrepreneur who's interested in expanding globally, they'll have a number of investors at The Hague in the Netherlands and are looking for 400 entrepreneurs from the United States to participate. So it's a cool opportunity to really expand your small business, and it might be something you're interested in. So from the Department of Education's perspective, we're really interested in creating entrepreneurs, but we're really interested in the education angle of things. Perkins 5 is a very large federal investment. We invest $1 billion every year in career and technical education, and so CTE for short. It was just reauthorized in summer 2018, and it really funds secondary and post-secondary career and technical education. So your state right now is in a planning process to say, here is the priority for our state, here's how we really want to use this investment that the federal government is making in our state. And it's a great opportunity to really get involved and to engage with your state stakeholders, so workforce and small business and other entrepreneurs, to say, here's what we should be teaching from middle school into community college to really leverage the support to help support entrepreneurs. So colleges, and when I talk about colleges, I'm talking about both 2-year and 4-year institutions, do a variety of things that really are geared towards supporting entrepreneurs. The first example I want to throw out is that things like the West Virginia Community and Technical College system actually had every single president in their system sign a national commitment with NACE, the National Association for Community College Entrepreneurship, to really engage all their faculty in more entrepreneurial thinking and helping embed this concept of, you know, how do you think more like an entrepreneur across their curriculum. Then there's programs like the one at Howard University where they actually have an entrepreneur program, and you'll get one-on-one support or one-on-one coaching. Or at Harrisburg University in Pennsylvania, was just featured in the Education Week weekly that we get, the Chronicle of Higher Education, and it's really set themselves up as a network that they're fostering entrepreneurship. Their fun example was Philip Grimm was the first graduate of their Master of Science program in analytics, and then he was an adjunct faculty member, and then he started working with the university full-time while he was earning his PhD in data science, but then started a startup with another professor who was on campus, and the university offered them seed money through their Business Accelerator program, and one of their trustees is one of their first major clients. So it's still very small scale, but the university is setting themselves up as being, you know, how do we foster entrepreneurship within this particular environment? And then when we get to universities, so really that 4-year space, the idea is to move from the laboratory to the marketplace. And we're seeing some great examples. Georgia Tech's one that I'd love to highlight. they have done some incredible things to support folks to get their innovations to market. They take research faculty, they provide them tons of support. They're creating business plans. The university's finding angel investors to invest in ideas in pre-production. They're giving folks access to incubator spaces, bringing in additional investors, and sometimes the state of Georgia is actually one of the investors so that they can own an equity position in whatever is being developed. But they're really identifying this in Georgia as the mechanism that's going to create the most potential growth in high-wage jobs. So as we heard in the first presentation, when you have that big influx of entrepreneurs, that's where we really start seeing job growth. And states are seeing that, and that's really playing out with the university system also. Another example is Kentucky. Their higher education office actually partnered with their local commerce department to leverage SBIR funds to create investments in university-developed entrepreneurship projects. And one cool example that developed from that was they started using CubeSats, so small boxes essentially that you can send to space. And a company from SpaceX actually grew out of the work. So they partnered with NASA at 3 of the universities in Kentucky, and faculty started running mini experiments in space. So they found, for example, that space development of crystals is superior to Earth development of crystals. And now they're actually marketing those crystals to be used for things like communications devices and metallurgy. So the application is really cool too. And just a few examples that I particularly like that have started coming out of this university research environment. The MRI machine in New York I picked because it's controversial, so it's fun. While 2 scientists won the Nobel Prize for the work in the 70s, a third is likely the real inventor, and he holds the patent and actually then developed the company that was called Phonar that really commercialized the technology. The next is that some researchers in Scotland actually found that wax moths can hear at frequencies that humans can't, and that they have just incredible hearing. And then researchers have actually taken the wax moth research and applied that to listening devices, and now we have listening devices that look like tiny pebbles that are being used in the defense space. You can imagine putting pebbles out on a war field and being able to hear what you're, right, thank you. And the last is that we've found that solar panels can actually come in very, very small form, so small that an aerosol spray can could actually spray on solar cells onto something. So we're seeing technology that's just starting to come to market where companies can create solar panels. They become an aerosol form, and then you can just attach wires to what you've sprayed onto the ground and power things like your cell phone. So it's pretty cool technology and really just being developed in this area. And then universities are creating this infrastructure to help folks who have the entrepreneurial ideas really figure out, how do I market this thing that I've created that's so cool? So thanks, Joe.
Well, thank you so much for that piece. It's really enlightening and illuminating. You know, when we talk about entrepreneurship, having been a serial entrepreneur, having worked with entrepreneurs, having taught entrepreneurship, entrepreneurship is inherently an educational endeavor. And so having the Department of Education not only provide the training for entrepreneurs is a part and parcel and very important, but also being able to go ahead and have opportunities for entrepreneurship training and education in the array of 4-year institutions, 2-year institutions, and even in some of the K-12 stuff. We really appreciate all the hard work there. With that, I want to go ahead and hand it over to Wendy Wasserman, who is with the Appalachian Regional Commission. A lot of people may not necessarily be familiar with the ARC, and I'll let Wendy go into it a little bit more detail, but one of the things that is probably important to highlight is that in a lot of the work that Wendy and her team do, they collect probably the most valuable series of resources and research on rural entrepreneurship, and are familiar with many of the models that both work and are transferable and sustainable in rural communities. So with that, Wendy, I'm going to hand it over to you, and thank you for joining us from the Appalachian Regional Commission today.
Thanks, Joe. Can you all hear me? Did someone say yes? Okay, Amber said yes. Well, it's really great to be here, and I'm very delighted to be on the same roster with some of our big federal agency siblings, USDA, Department of Ed, and others. For those of you who don't know us, and I really do think it's important to take a few minutes to just tell you a little bit about the ARC. Can you go to the next slide, Amber, please? Thank you so much. The Appalachian Regional Commission is actually a federal agency. It's a federal-state partnership. It covers 13 states. Here you can see 420 counties from northern Mississippi to southern New York. That's 25 million people. The reason that that's important, and I wanted to just take a second to talk about that, is I think if I was to say Appalachia in a crowded room, most people would think Eastern Kentucky, West Virginia, maybe Tennessee or Virginia, depending on how they're feeling at the moment. But for us, the footprint is much bigger. And that means in those 420 counties, there's a lot of experiences going on. In rural counties, the majority of those counties are rural. But that gives a lot of opportunity for lots of different entrepreneurs. And we see entrepreneur development happening all across the region. We're just to give you an idea of funding resources for those who are in the footprint, and I'm not sure how many people on the call are. We're primarily known as a funding agency. We do grants, straight up grants, that we do mostly in partnership with the governors of these states who we work with. They recommend economic development projects that they want to fund based on their priorities and our strategic investment goals. And then we usually go ahead and fund them in cooperation with the state. And entrepreneurship is at the top of our list of strategic investment goals. So for those in the footprint who are looking for funding or have a brilliant idea for economic development, that's what you would know us for most likely. And for you to sort of engage with us on a funding level, the first step would be with your governor's office. Now, if we can go to the next slide. For those of you outside the region, and I'm guessing most of you are, we actually still do a lot of research, as Joe said, on a whole bunch of different economic development issues that are applicable not only to our experience within Appalachia, but to other communities that might be experiencing similar economic trends and other economic indicators. So one of the research products that we did recently that I wanted to share with you today is this suite of research called Entrepreneurial Ecosystems in Appalachia. So don't be dissuaded by the name. It is not Appalachian specific, but draws from the Appalachian experience. And the first thing that this suite of research does is talk about what are the key building blocks for a robust and comprehensive and holistic entrepreneurial ecosystem. We talk about entrepreneurial ecosystems all the time. And what do entrepreneurs and the support services and that whole community need to succeed? You can see some of them here in this really cool graphic that we're super proud of. And then the question is how do those get put to work? Well, this research shows some communities and talks about some communities that are using these different kinds of strategies in cooperation with each other to develop entrepreneurial ecosystems and push forward economic growth in rural communities. So again, if you're in Appalachia, that's super. If you're not in Appalachia and you work on rural entrepreneurship, there's a lot to be learned here. You can read about places like Athens County, Ohio, which is doing a lot of work with public-private partnerships to develop entrepreneurial ecosystems. Southwest Virginia, very, very rural community in the tippy corner of Western Virginia, which is looking at how to capitalize on their natural resources and tourism as an entrepreneurial anchor. And even places like Garrett County, Maryland, which is, some people don't think of as Appalachia, we sure do, which is really building, again, a network of regional partners to activate an entrepreneurial space and cultivate entrepreneurialism. And these are types of things that we've been funding. But again, I think the lesson here and the resource here is not just about money in, money out, but it's also about what ideas and resources and assets and talents can we bring to the table, or anyone needs to bring to the table to make an entrepreneurial ecosystem robust. So let's go quickly to the next slide. I know we're sort of running out of time, but again, you know, this research we talked about looking at Appalachia writ large as a case study. There is no magical census of entrepreneurs. Everybody kind of knows that. I think every single one of us on this webinar would count entrepreneurs in a different sort of a way, because there is no yellow pages or global address book of let's look up entrepreneurs. So we used a different type of proxy system our researchers did to understand and take a snapshot of entrepreneurial dynamism, is what we call it, in the region. So we looked at new companies, we looked at high growth firms, we looked at new really smaller companies. And the reason I wanted to show you this slide was because those numbers are actually really impressive. And if you think of Appalachia, I'm guessing that you're not thinking that there's 206,000 small businesses being developed across the footprint, or that there are close to 360,000 new companies in the footprint. So Appalachia is kind of booming. It's kind of like the best kept secret for entrepreneurship, I would say, in the country. I hope Joe would agree, being a West Virginian himself. So again, something to really think about. This last piece here in the bottom right, where it says entrepreneurial support organizations, the reason that this is important and I think really relevant to anyone on the call, either inside or out of the region, is this is literally an inventory of different types of organizations, although mostly based in Appalachia, offer different types of support to entrepreneurs, whether it's guidance on how to access capital, entry points to networks of other entrepreneurs, business incubators, what other kind of support systems people need. We have it all cataloged, or at least a really hefty sampling of it cataloged by all the counties in our region. And for those outside the region, it's also very useful because you can sort of look at that and say, golly, there's got to be a companion organization where I live. I hadn't thought that I might need that. Maybe I can look them up. The other thing that this resource does, arc.gov/ecosystems, is just going back to this proxy idea, is it looks at new businesses, startups, and high growth firms at every county in the country. So you can, again, take a look at that and see how that applies to where you are, what kind of data that helps. Maybe you need that kind of data for writing grants. Maybe you need that kind of data for making your business case. Whatever it might be, that data resource is there. So that's all I really wanted to say. We can just go to the next slide. You know, I think what our biggest thing is even though we are committed to the Appalachian region, it's part of our mission, clearly, to bring the area to socioeconomic parity with the rest of the country. The lessons learned in Appalachia really do apply to the rest of the country and vice versa. I think there's a tendency to sort of isolate this region, which is pretty unfortunate because it is sort of a hotbed and there are really exciting things going on with economic development and entrepreneurship, which is really the engine that's driving it all. So with that, I'm going to say thank you, and thank you to Amber and Joe.
Well, thank you so much. I think that you know, the Appalachian region has a lot of lessons to provide to other communities, regardless of location and locale. And so we're going to switch gears here to our final presentation, moving from small Appalachian rural towns to intergalactic opportunities with with NASA. And so with that, I'd like to go ahead and introduce Janelle Steele, who is the Assistant Deputy Program Executive for the SBIR program on space technology. So welcome, Janelle. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, thanks a lot for having me, Joe and Amber. I appreciate you guys putting this together. Good afternoon to everyone participating on the webinar, and I might say good morning to those who might be participating from the West Coast. NASA's mission, you can go to the next slide. NASA's mission has always been very challenging. We've always been particularly interested in going where no man has gone before, but we've also recognized that to do so, we need to be able to leverage all the greatest minds from the public academia, and across government to help solve some of our really interesting and most impactful problems. There are 3 primary programs that engage entrepreneurs in helping us identify solutions to some of those problems. And I'll walk you through each at a high level, provide an example of how some entrepreneurs have these vehicles to start them on their way to commercial success, and then lastly, provide you links for getting more information about our program. Next slide. The NASA iTech is our newest initiative and really provides a unique opportunity for entrepreneurs to develop technologies around problems that are not already funded by NASA. These problems are solving problems here on Earth and have potential to address existing challenges to enable NASA missions. As the slide shows, there are 3 main steps in the process. Step 1, innovators would apply to a particular focus area that is identified in one of the 2 cycles per year that we offer. The step 2 is where the 10 companies will be selected to participate in the iTech Forum, where they'll learn from NASA's chief technologists, industry partners, and investors on how to hone their skills regarding their technology. And then step 3 is where companies will be picked to get more intensive support on how to propel their technologies forward. The next event that NASA iTech has is something called Ignite the Night, and it is in Austin, Texas on March 11th. The applications for that event, though, are due today. So you can go to the website that I'll show on the last slide. After that, there will also be an event in Colorado Springs, Colorado in April, of which the applications will be due in March. Okay, next slide. The NASA Solve is a one-stop website that lists all the opportunities for entrepreneurs to participate in things like citizen science, prizes and challenges, and educational outsourcing problem-solving events. There are numerous opportunities always opened that will engage anybody in trying to get towards solving some of our associated issues. Okay, next slide. The largest of NASA's agency-wide programs providing funding to particularly high-tech small businesses is our STTR program that we've run since the program was brought into law by SBA in 1982 for SBIR and 1992 for STTR. Our program, as with the other 10 agencies that participate in, is a phased program. NASA's distinction is that in phase 1, we have 125K awards, as well as opportunities for those phase 1 awardees to participate in a collaborative effort that we developed with NSF called I-Corps. Under I-Corps, they will engage in a deep dive into the potential markets for their technologies. We also have 750K phase 2 award amounts that we offer opportunities to access additional awards to further work to commercialize technologies through our post-phase 2 vehicles called phase 2E. Next slide. So just to give you a flavor of how these programs have jump-started some pretty successful business ventures, I've highlighted a couple of companies that have leveraged multiple paths on their way to commercialization. The first company is one of the participants in a NASA challenge that we had to develop a better astronaut glove. Ted Sutherland, who was primarily working in the costume design industry, and Nicola Mosiv, who was an engineer, paired up just for this competition and formed Final Frontier Design. They went on to come in second place in 2009, but they further pursued an SBIR and developed a successful product base around spacesuit designs. FCG Plasma Solutions was founded to address the need to have clean, compact, low emissions combustions for jet engines. They started out working with NASA through a Space Act agreement, which led them to getting a SBIR Phase 1 contract, and now they're positioned through their NASA iTech to better support their desire to commercialize because of their industry partner. Next slide. So if you want to get involved, again, there is an opportunity open now for NASA iTech. There's the website for them. For NASA Solve, there's ongoing opportunities to work in the citizen science and prizes and challenges area. We currently have our SBIR solicitation that is open, and you can find out more about that at sbir.nasa.gov. Okay, thank you.
Great, Janelle. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you coming to the table and speaking with us today, and all of the other folks from the various agencies who have joined us today. We're very, very appreciative. This is the last presentation, the last official webinar for National Entrepreneurship Week. It's been an amazing week, and today is just the capstone of all of the great presentations that have taken place throughout the week. For those of you who have participated and or are listening through this at some later date, there are a host of opportunities with regards to the federal government, and I would encourage you, if you're starting a business, to certainly have as part of your business plan an exploration of the benefits and the opportunities that the federal government agencies have. They may reside in unexpected spaces and places, but those opportunities are significant, especially for new businesses that are forming. Just a reminder, if you're not doing so already, please follow us on Twitter at National Entrepreneurship Week with the hashtag National NatlEshipWeek, and we're going to continue tweeting through the rest of this week. Next slide, please. Just as a reminder for next year, you can go ahead and put on your calendars the day after Valentine's Day, February 15th through the 22nd. We will be celebrating National Entrepreneurship Week for 2020. So we look forward to folks getting involved in that. And if you have an interest in getting involved, we'd like to go ahead and invite people to participate by signing up at our website for National Entrepreneurship Week and joining the advisory board. You could do that by going to nationalentrepreneurshipreweek.org. And there's opportunities to sign up as a state ambassador and to join as an advisory member. So with that, I'd like to reiterate my thanks to all of those organizations that I've presented, not just today, but during the entire week. NACI, EntreEd, and IMBIA, the Every Library, and all of the great organizations that participated throughout the week. We're super excited and proud and want to thank everybody for their continuing and ongoing efforts to support Entrepreneurship Week. Amber, thank you so much for your time and energy. At this point, it's all volunteer between the work that we're doing, and we're so appreciative of all the fix and the coordination. Just want to thank everybody once again. So have a great weekend, and we will see you all here next year. Thanks a lot, everyone. Happy Entrepreneurship Week.